Ahoy there, mateys! Welcome back to another episode of the Job and Ruben Show.
Hello, so we are going straight into the second episode, continuing with the Apple event.
Part 2 of the Apple event, because we was rambling so much that we couldn't fit it all in one wee episode.
So, we have got the iPhone 14 and the iPhone 14
Pro!
That is it. That's the word. Okay, so let's dive straight into Apple's newest phone, the iPhone 14.
Pro.
And the 14.
And the regular 14, obviously, yeah.
So, kicking it off with the price.
Not
Not to deter anyone, but do you want to have a guess at how much it is? The 14, the regular 14.
Regular 14. We gotta take the Apple tax into mind here, so £700-ish?
Let's go £799.
So basically £800.
That is,
let's face it.
Well, that's only for the 128 gigabytes of storage. If you want more storage, you're paying for the 256. You're paying an extra £100. So it does get expensive real fast.
And the Pro Max?
And the Pro Max is $1,099, and that is only with 128 gigabytes of storage, and with each.
Let that sink in, folks. £1,000 for a phone, for a funny, touchy screen device.
No, but that isn't.
They have a target audience here,
and it does go up to 200. I think it has a stupid amount of storage, so it keeps going up by 100 for each storage. So you can
all the upsells you could dream of.
Yes. Everything you need, going up more and more and more.
But what do you get, Mr. Ruben?
So,
as you are the one with the notes, and I have no idea what we're doing.
So the iPhone 14, the standard one, is 6.1 inches above average.
Alright.
Of every other phone, but it's the same. It is the same as the iPhone 13 Pro, just without the Pro features.
Yeah.
So it's nothing huge. It's not as big.
It's enough screen.
It's enough screen.
Although before we continue,
they haven't upgraded the screen to be bigger.
Although before we continue, can we please have a moment of silence, please, for the iPhone Mini? They finally killed it.
And the iPod.
Anyway, continue.
The Plus variant of it is at 6.7 inches.
All right.
And now is the time to get into all the juicy details of all the funky features. So they've now got the true depth camera.
All right. That is the AI, I'm assuming?
Yes, some of the AI and the ability to basically the lens distortion, so you're getting the better lens quality.
It's good. You don't really think of Apple as an AI company, but they do have a lot of good AI, don't they?
Yeah. Simple, effective. Action mode, which is their new video format, new video taking.
Obviously, we can't exactly test that because we don't have an iPhone 14, but from the demo footage, it looks pretty good, doesn't it?
It looks really good. Essentially, it's like having a gimbal without having a gimbal. So for all those action shots where you're running around, it will stabilise it, and it will stabilise your footage so it looks way smoother. Which for running action shots, perfection.
For stuff like amateur creators, people who are just starting out, it's pretty good. Apple's always been good for like just amateur creators, single people who perhaps don't have as much money for the expensive kit like gimbals.
Yeah, gimbals can be stupidly expensive. I was looking at one, I just decided against it.
Although then again, if you are in the iPhone market, chances are you can afford a gimbal.
So they've got cinematic mode, which nothing new, was in the iPhone 13.
But
it can now do 4K. So for all your 4K movies that you want to shoot, you can now do it in cinematic mode.
Very, very good. And
cool.
It doesn't sound like it, but a lot of movies were actually shot on iPhone, funnily enough.
Hashtag shot on iPhone.
Yeah. I remember that. It's dumbest advertising thing. But, yeah. I mean, maybe not proper movies. Although I think a bit of Avengers was shot on iPhone. Might be wrong. No sources provided, by the way. We don't do sources here.
They have capture in any light, so they have really They have not really good, but they have better light capturing.
Hmm.
They have crash detection. We'll talk more about this as we go on. Satellite SOS, emergency calls.
That's an interesting one.
They also have a guaranteed all-day battery life, which is huge.
Pretty good, yeah. The question is, will fast charging deteriorate that? I've heard mixed things about fast charging. I don't know
Not fast
what you think
charging,
about it.
all-day battery life.
No, like deteriorate the battery lifetime.
I haven't seen any cases, but actually, give it 3 years, and if you're buying an iPhone 14, right this moment, it'll probably last you 5 years, and by then we might have a new amazing flagship, which will be dramatically better than the iPhone 14. So you'll go with that one instead. So I reckon it all balances out. It has a ceramic shield, making it way more protective, beefier for all those people who absolutely hate cases. And it's also splash and water resistant.
Which is a surprising amount of people. I just don't get why people don't put cases on their phones.
It's just stupid.
Exactly.
The mouse cases look so nice.
The what, sorry?
The mouse cases. The ones where the people like dropping them from space and then still surviving.
Oh,
have you not seen those ones? Yeah.
I've heard of them, but I can't say I've looked into them.
Oh no, they are proper nice cases.
Screen protectors for iPhone, basically a necessity. Those things crack up very easily.
Yeah. So they pretty much improved the camera.
A lot of incremental changes here.
Bigger, better camera. So they've got a better camera sensor, and on top of it,
bigger camera physically as well.
Yeah, and it's just beefier in physical. It's physically, and also the software is beefier. Has better low light. I've mentioned that. But they've also improved on their Deep Fusion AI, which allows it to be like manipulated.
Do some funky stuff.
Really
this
cool.
is for the ones with the 2 cameras, right? Not the 3 cameras.
Yes, for the 2 for the iPhone 14, which only has 2 cameras, but it still applies on the Pro as well.
Yeah.
Because it's software based. What's really cool is they now have autofocus on the forward-facing camera. So when you're on FaceTime, it focuses on you way better, and actually, it's quite handy because you've had that on the outward-facing one, but now on the forward-facing, it's pretty handy, pretty neat.
Very nice.
The stabilization in action mode, we've talked about that.
We've been over that.
Emergency SOS satellite thing they're doing. So when you're in emergency,
it's a bit goofy. What do you think of it? I'm still a bit divisive on it.
It's good. It's Apple, classic Apple. They've took a big concept, condensed it to a need an ordinary person might need, and stuck it in your phone so it will work for you how you need it to work. For the average Joe, which actually is really handy, especially if you're stranded in the middle of Wales, for example, and you need to make an emergency call, but you can't because there's no service. You can hopefully get a message out, which is really handy.
You're definitely the target demographic here, considering your miles-long walks around the English countryside. Yeah, definitely at risk. Although, I'd say I wouldn't... If you know you're at risk of, getting mauled to death by a bear, maybe it's worth investing in a satellite phone still.
But the price of satellite phones, do you want to have a guess at how much they're ranging from?
Expensive.
They're around 1,000 to 1,500 for a satellite phone, and that purely connects to satellite to take phone calls. Nothing else, no fancy functions, no Instagram, no YouTube, no Spotify, no checking into our amazing podcast.
I see that as a good thing, though. Not the podcast part, but hey, no Instagram. Just give your kids satellite phones. Problem solved, innit?
But no, I think it's it's a cool function that will enable...
Which will only get better, keep in mind.
Which will only get better, and actually they've made use of it, I think. People will use it. It's like, 3 words? People... Well, we're not going to talk about what people do.
Stop promoting! This is our podcast, we can't afford to promote other people. Ruthless business.
But the way it works is, if you don't have a signal, it will, when you're calling it, they'll send you to basically another app, and you will then point it towards the nearest satellite so you can get the best connection.
Yeah, good stuff.
Good stuff, yes. Handy, Not everyone will need it, but it's useful nonetheless.
Do you think Apple will ever make their own satellites? Because Tesla's already doing it, and they're a pretty big tech company.
Yeah, maybe.
They definitely have the engineers.
They have the engineers. It's whether they can keep up with competition.
It's true, it's true.
Because actually...
And hey, Tesla, I don't know if you've seen this. This might be a bit out of place in a Apple episode, but Tesla are planning on making a phone.
Oh, are they? Oh.
It's... I think it's
Moving on
confirmed
from
at this
their
point.
head chips.
Yeah, it's... On the surface level, it doesn't make sense, but considering how much technology goes into phones nowadays, you know, you can see, can't you? Like,
Yeah.
It's a logical jump, isn't it?
But Mr. Elon's just wanted to make more and more money.
Fair do. I mean,
But satellites...
business is business.
Yeah, but he's using his satellites to help people in Ukraine, which is good. One final point on the iPhone 14, they've got the crash detection. So when you do crash in a car, it will, if you're unconscious and you don't respond, they will basically call the emergency services. But cars
Good
already
stuff.
have that.
Maybe after all this time, after all these features they're cramming into the iPhone, they might finally have an excuse for why they removed the headphone jack.
Maybe.
They just have, yeah.
Cars have already had it for ages, but I guess it's just another small handy feature. We've talked more about this in the watch, the episode before, because the watch has the same function, which again just promotes their ecosystem, doesn't it?
Exactly. At the end of the day, you're not, as an Android user, unless you're someone like us, obviously, you're not going to be watching this Apple event. This is an Apple event designed for Apple users. They come in, they want to know, okay, what more features do I get? What is Mr. Tim Cook going to be giving me? And if I were an Apple user, I'd be pretty satisfied. I mean, there's quite a bit here.
All right, so time for the pro time.
To address the elephant in the room, the big D, the big boy.
The dynamic
Island.
island.
But before the dynamic island, what else does the Pro have?
So, as you guessed it, probably, it's got thinner bezels.
Of course it has.
Thinner bezels.
You're never going to notice it, let's face it. But it's good to have.
Yes. You know what? Should we leave the dynamic island till last?
I think so.
Leaving the dynamic island till last.
Just egging you on a bit there.
Egging you on, yeah. So they've got increased brightness, going up to 1,600 nits. But in daytime, I don't know how they've done it in daytime, it can go up to 2,000 nits, which is a lot.
Pretty bright. I don't know why you'd ever want a phone to go that bright. I don't know. Do you know how bright your phone goes?
Let me check. So I've come back with the answer. My phone, the iPhone X, comes up to 809 nits, so that's almost double the brightness.
It's pretty bright.
My phone's bright.
I can't really see me using that much brightness. How much do you have your brightness set to on average?
It depends where I am, because when you're outside and it's really bright, it'll be all the way up. But actually in my room, right now it's set to maybe halfway. Sometimes it's like a quarter of the way, depending on the level of light and how bright I want it.
Well, as an Android user, I get access to adaptive brightness, so I don't really know how much my brightness is set to. It's set to enough, as much as it needs to be.
So it reacts with the environment, which is
pretty good.
Which is interesting. Again, features Android have had.
Yeah,
years.
We're playing this game again, are we?
They have just crammed a bunch of stuff Android has for ages. In like with the iOS 16 and their widgets on the home screen.
It's good.
Apple have done what they've always done. They've just waited a couple years, improved upon that technology.
It's the Apple way. Personally, I like that strategy. Yes. I don't know how you feel about it.
The A16 chip, which is processing the iPhone 14 Pro, is the most powerful chip so far. That's what we've discovered.
Most powerful can mean a lot of things. In the presentation, they compared it with the A13, and obviously it's a lot higher, but it's probably just incremental.
No, I think they are. I think they are holding up to be one. It is one of the most powerful chips on the market at the moment.
Yeah, the real problem is
it's still good.
The problem is Apple kind of has Well, they don't have a monopoly on ARM, obviously, but they have a monopoly on good ARM chips. Because recently, I don't know if you've noticed, but Qualcomm, they haven't been doing too good. Yeah, Qualcomm chips have really been falling behind, and that's part of the reason why a lot of phone manufacturers like Samsung and most recently Google with their Tensor stuff, they've started making their own chips because they just can't compete with Apple.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
The pixel binning. So again, a function.
Well, go on, photography man. Care to explain pixel binning?
So pixel binning is when, especially they're using low light mode, they will use 8 pixels of your photo and combine it into one super pixel. So it will condense the amount of pixels, but hopefully give you a better quality image. Essentially, Samsung has had that for years, but actually it can be quite handy. Lower resolution, but better image quality.
Yeah.
It can be useful in some locations. Also, on the cameras, has a third camera, like all the pros do.
Of course, the classic fidget spinner design.
Yes. And with a Pro, you can shoot raw photos.
Pro RAW. You reckon you use that much?
Raw photos take up a stupid amount of storage.
Very true.
Which is probably why you can get like a terabyte plus storage on your Pros. So you can, I think it's actually exclusive to the iPhone Pro, but that was my mistake. You can shoot in 4K in cinematic mode, which again is quite cool. I mentioned it earlier in the episode, but made the mistake of thinking it was the iPhone 14. But I now think it's the Pro. I think it's exclusive to the Pro. And then you've got the action mode, which again, very cool, very handy.
Yeah,
and
it's
now,
just a lot of stuff. It's very closely aimed at photographers, and you can definitely tell that. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a big draw for photographers because most professional cameras, the software side is severely lacking behind.
Yeah. Should we move on to the big thing?
I suppose we should.
The pill.
Ladies and gentlemen,
welcome
to the Dynamic Island.
The Dynamic Island is interesting. Do you like it?
It's like a multitasking thing, but it's also an excuse to have a pill. It's weird. It looks
weird. Yeah, I like it though.
It looks very fluid. I love the animations, by the way. Of course, this is Apple. Their graphic design is superb. That needs no introduction. It's better. I despise the notch. I mean, it just didn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm really interested in is, you reckon the Dynamic Island will be coming to MacBooks?
Ooh, because that'll be like the you know how they had the touch? Was it touchpad at the?
Yeah, touch bar.
Touch bar. That'll be like the touch bar.
A lot of people really like the touch bar.
Oh, actually. I quite like the touch bar.
Did you ever get a chance to use it?
I did use it, and it was so cool because you could control your spot. You could control like little functions on it, like your Spotify volume and your skipping and your scrolling through songs and all that kind of stuff, which I found quite nice.
It's a very
and emojis. You could type your emojis through it.
The problem is Android just can't really compete in this field, considering the reason why stuff like the touch bar and the Dynamic Island are so successful is because software developers can develop for it to help give it more features. So Apple really has the advantage here. But would it really be necessary on a MacBook though? Because you already have the multitasking capabilities, the gestures, all that. Would you end up using it?
I'm not sure, but more about the Dynamic Island is it can react with the environment, which is so cool. It can convert like any app into a little
island. It hurts to use their words, but yeah, I guess it's an island.
Yeah, but Spotify, it means you can see your song and you can skip through your song. Phone calls, it will pop up as a phone call kind of thing, and any apps, you can use it to like shortcut to apps and stuff.
It definitely feels pro. I don't know about you, but I think this really being exclusive to the Pro, it does make it feels like it's for pros, for professionals, because all the
And it's so
multitasking it
sleek.
provides. Yeah.
The way it interacts with everything around it and all the different features of the iPhone, from it being phone calls to messages to music to FaceTime, it all incorporates it, and the way it moves around with the other apps is so cool.
I still don't know. I'm a bit decisive on this one. Do you think you would have preferred it if the dynamic island was to the side?
Oh no!
Because at least then it gets less in the way when you're consuming full screen content and that. Which, if you're buying a Pro with the big beefy screen, it's the kind of stuff you're going to be doing.
Yeah, it does make it a bit weird with the viewing, but I think it's a trade-off with an iPhone. But you can do it with the with the notch now. You can make it go around the notch, or you make it not go around the notch. I think that might be the same with the pill. Don't quote me on it. I haven't seen it being used, but I'm for it at the moment. I'm actually for it. What else do you want to say about it?
I don't know. I do really want to get hands on. We should really pop to an Apple store or something just to.
Yeah, and blow £1,000.
I love not buy it. Apple store, just walk in and fucking tap away.
Yeah.
I love Apple stores, by the way. Just being able to go in and try
what
it out.
else? Other new stuff. They've released the iPhone 14 advert, which I think is so cool.
I haven't seen it. What
It's
makes
just
it
really
cool?
like flowy and pew pow with like colour splashes and like slow mos along the side,
Very
extra
Apple.
zoom ins,
Very Apple.
very Apple. But for the first time ever, they've shown you how they've recorded it, which is very nice. Never been done before by Apple.
Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying it. Maybe we can talk about that on another episode.
Apple, it's a bit weird because Apple, they're a very secretive company. I mean, look at the Apple headquarters. It's one big ring, and it's all contained in there.
Yeah. So thanks for listening to the Job and Ruben show.
That was a lot. There was a lot to take in there. A lot of good, a lot of incremental stuff, a lot of much less incremental stuff, like the AI, for example, all the weird satellite features. Gimmicky, perhaps. But interesting, absolutely.
And there's so much more we haven't covered, and so much more you can go into depth. So I highly recommend, if you're interested, check it out. Check out other YouTube channels, other podcasts.
Well, don't be providing our competitors here.
No, but join us for the next one as we dive into something
Completely different.
and completely more interesting.
Been great having you. Hope you enjoyed. We certainly did. Goodbye.
Goodbye.